Good day, everyone. Have you ever wondered why someone who genuinely cares about you suddenly becomes distant? Why a person who loves you deeply seems to pull away instead of moving closer? Most people assume distance means a lack of love, but often the opposite is true. Sometimes the deepest emotions create the strongest fears, and those fears can lead a person to retreat. Today, I want to explore a surprising truth. The person staying away may not be running from you. They may be running from what your presence awakens within them. When a person begins to love deeply, something far more significant happens than simple attraction or affection. Deep love reaches beneath the surface of everyday personality and touches areas of the mind that often remain hidden. Most people spend years building an image of themselves, an identity that feels safe, familiar, and controlled. They learn how to present themselves to the world, how to protect their vulnerabilities, and how to avoid confronting certain emotions. Yet when a meaningful connection enters their life, this carefully constructed image can begin to crack. Love has a unique ability to illuminate what has been buried in the unconscious, bringing forgotten feelings, fears, and desires into awareness. This process can be both beautiful and unsettling. A person may discover emotions they never expected to feel. They may find themselves caring more deeply than they thought possible. At the same time, they may become aware of insecurities they believed they had overcome. Old wounds from childhood, previous relationships, disappointments, or betrayals can suddenly return to the surface. The presence of someone deeply valued becomes a mirror, reflecting not only strengths but also weaknesses. In that reflection, a person sees parts of themselves that have long remained hidden. Many individuals are comfortable with relationships that remain on the surface because such relationships do not require profound self-examination. They can participate without exposing their deepest fears. But genuine emotional intimacy is different. It asks a person to remove psychological masks and confront realities they may have spent years avoiding. The closer the connection grows, the more difficult it becomes to maintain old defenses. What once felt secure may suddenly feel uncertain. This is often why deep love creates anxiety alongside joy. A person realizes that they have something meaningful to lose. They recognize how much another individual matters to them, and that recognition can awaken fears they never anticipated. Questions begin to emerge from within. Am I worthy of this love? What if I am rejected? What if I cannot live up to expectations? What if this connection changes my life in ways I cannot control? These questions are rarely spoken aloud, yet they can influence behavior in powerful ways. As these inner conflicts intensify, some people instinctively create distance. The distance is not necessarily directed at the person they love. Instead, it is directed at the uncomfortable emotions that love has awakened. By stepping back, they attempt to escape the pressure of self-discovery. They hope to regain the sense of stability they had before the relationship became emotionally significant. Ironically, the very person who inspires the deepest feelings may also become the catalyst for the deepest internal struggle. What appears from the outside as withdrawal or hesitation may actually be evidence that the connection has touched something profound within the soul, something powerful enough to challenge a person's understanding of who they truly are. Once deep emotions have been awakened, a person often finds themselves standing at the edge of an unfamiliar psychological landscape. The feelings they experience may be genuine and powerful, yet those same feelings can also create a sense of vulnerability they are unprepared to handle. Love has a way of lowering emotional defenses that may have been built over many years. For someone who has learned to protect themselves from disappointment, rejection, or emotional pain, this sudden openness can feel both exciting and threatening at the same time. As a result, distance often becomes a form of protection rather than a sign of indifference. Human beings naturally seek safety. When an emotion feels overwhelming, the mind searches for ways to reduce the discomfort. In matters of love, this can lead a person to withdraw from the very connection they desire most. The closer they feel to someone, the more aware they become of the possibility of loss. A relationship that truly matters carries emotional risk. The heart begins to imagine not only the joy of connection, but also the pain that could come if that connection were broken. For some individuals, the fear of future suffering becomes stronger than their willingness to remain emotionally exposed in the present. This protective instinct often operates beneath conscious awareness. A person may not fully understand why they are pulling away. They may tell themselves they need space, time, or independence. While these explanations can contain some truth, they often conceal a deeper reality. The distance is serving as a shield against emotions that feel too intense to manage. By creating physical or emotional separation, they attempt to regain control over a situation that has stirred powerful feelings within them. Fear can take many forms. Some fear rejection and worry that their feelings will not be returned with the same depth. Others fear abandonment because of painful experiences from the past. Some fear intimacy itself, because true closeness requires authenticity, and authenticity demands courage. There are also those who fear change. A meaningful relationship has the power to reshape priorities, habits, and even personal identity. The prospect of such transformation can feel overwhelming, causing a person to hesitate even when their heart is fully engaged. What makes this situation particularly confusing is that love and avoidance can exist simultaneously. A person may think about someone constantly while avoiding contact. They may miss them deeply while maintaining distance. Their actions and emotions appear contradictory because they are being pulled in opposite directions by two powerful forces. One force seeks connection, while the other seeks protection. The resulting behavior can seem irrational from the outside, yet internally, it feels like a struggle for emotional survival. In many cases, the distance is not a reflection of how little someone cares. It is a reflection of how much the relationship affects them. The stronger the emotional impact, the stronger the temptation to retreat into familiar patterns of self-protection. Until they learn to face their fears directly, the protective wall may remain in place, even when their deepest desire is to move closer rather than farther away. When love and fear exist together within the same person, an intense inner conflict begins to develop. One part of the individual longs for closeness, understanding, and emotional connection, while another part urges caution, restraint, and withdrawal. These opposing forces rarely create clarity. Instead, they generate confusion, hesitation, and silence. From the outside, this silence may appear cold or uninterested, but beneath the surface, an invisible struggle is often taking place. The person is not necessarily lacking feelings. They may be experiencing so many emotions that they no longer know how to express them. Silence often emerges when words seem inadequate to describe what is happening internally. Deep emotions can be difficult to understand, even for the person experiencing them. They may spend hours analyzing their feelings, questioning their motives, and trying to determine what the relationship truly means. Every possibility carries emotional consequences. Moving closer requires vulnerability. Pulling away creates loneliness. Neither option feels completely safe. As a result, the individual remains suspended between desire and resistance, unable to move confidently in either direction. During this period, the mind becomes a place of constant dialogue. One voice encourages action and honesty. Another warns of disappointment and emotional risk. Memories from the past may influence the conversation. Previous heartbreaks, broken trust, or painful experiences can reappear and shape current perceptions. The individual may unconsciously compare the present connection to earlier wounds, fearing that history could repeat itself. Even when the circumstances are entirely different, old emotional patterns often remain powerful. This internal struggle can consume enormous amounts of mental energy. While others see only quietness or distance, the person may be thinking about the relationship more than ever before. They replay conversations, analyze interactions, and imagine future possibilities. They wonder whether their feelings are understood, whether the connection is genuine, and whether they possess the courage to move forward. The silence is therefore not empty. It is filled with reflection, uncertainty, and emotional tension. At times, this silence becomes a temporary refuge. By avoiding direct expression, the individual delays making difficult decisions. Speaking honestly would require confronting emotions that feel overwhelming. Remaining silent allows them to postpone that confrontation. Yet silence has a cost. The longer emotions remain unspoken, the more complicated they can become. Doubts grow stronger, assumptions multiply, and opportunities for genuine understanding may begin to fade. What makes this stage particularly challenging is that the person often appears calm while experiencing considerable turmoil within. Their outward behavior may suggest detachment, but their inner world tells a different story. They are attempting to reconcile competing psychological forces, searching for a a sense of certainty before taking action. Until that reconciliation occurs, they may continue to remain quiet, not because they have stopped caring, but because the significance of the connection has created questions that demand answers. The silence becomes evidence of an unresolved inner conflict, a struggle between the desire to be seen completely and the fear of what such exposure might require. Every meaningful relationship eventually reaches a point where emotions alone are no longer enough. Feelings may create the connection, but sustaining that connection requires something deeper, personal transformation. Love has a remarkable way of revealing the areas in which a person must grow. It exposes fears that need to be confronted, insecurities that need to be understood, and emotional patterns that can no longer remain hidden. For this reason, genuine love is not simply an experience of comfort and happiness. It is also an invitation to evolve into a more conscious and authentic version of oneself. Many people hope that love will solve their inner conflicts, but meaningful relationships often do the opposite. They bring those conflicts into the light. A person may discover that their fear of rejection prevents them from expressing what they truly feel. They may realize that their need for control creates distance when closeness is needed. They may become aware of emotional wounds from the past that continue to influence present behavior. These discoveries can be uncomfortable because they challenge long-held beliefs and familiar habits. Yet they are also necessary steps in the process of growth. Transformation begins when an individual stops running from these realities and starts facing them honestly. Instead of blaming circumstances or other people, they turn inward and examine the forces shaping their reactions. They ask difficult questions. Why do I fear vulnerability? Why do I pull away when someone gets close? Why do I doubt my worth despite evidence to the contrary? Such questions require courage because they lead into parts of the psyche that are often avoided. However, lasting change becomes possible only when these hidden areas are acknowledged rather than ignored. As self-awareness increases, fear gradually loses some of its power. The person begins to recognize that many of the barriers standing between them and deeper connection were created as forms of protection. These defenses may have served an important purpose at one time, helping them survive emotional pain or disappointment. But what once provided safety can later become a prison. Growth occurs when an individual understands that protection and isolation are not the same thing. A wall that keeps pain out can also keep love out. Through this process, the relationship itself begins to change. The need to hide decreases. Communication becomes more honest. Emotional risks become easier to take because the person is no longer relying solely on avoidance to manage fear. They develop the capacity to remain present even when uncertainty exists. This does not mean fear disappears entirely. Rather, courage becomes stronger than fear. In the end, true connection is not achieved by finding a perfect relationship free from challenges. It is achieved when a person becomes willing to meet those challenges with awareness and maturity. The distance that once seemed necessary begins to lose its purpose because the inner conflict that created it has been transformed. What remains is the ability to approach love with openness, authenticity, and a deeper understanding of both oneself and another person. Thank you all for being here and sharing this time with me. I hope today's message has offered a deeper understanding of why love and distance can sometimes exist side by side. Often, what appears to be rejection is actually an inner struggle, and what seems like silence may be a journey of self-discovery taking place beneath the surface. Remember, the most meaningful relationships are not only about finding someone who loves us, but also about developing the courage to face ourselves honestly. Growth, self-awareness, and emotional understanding are often the bridges that transform distance into connection. Thank you for your attention, your presence, and your willingness to reflect on these deeper aspects of human relationships. May you leave with greater compassion for others, greater understanding of yourself, and greater confidence in the transformative power of genuine love. Goodbye, and take care. May your path be guided by wisdom, your heart by authenticity, and your relationships by understanding. Until we meet again, stay curious, stay courageous, and never stop growing into the person you are meant to become. Thank you, and goodbye.